This is a story about kicking the can down the road. Big changes in big systems are never easy. And when it comes to the way we manage our airspace, one thing is certain. The system is under strain and has long needed an overhaul. But for the past 30 years, it has been easier to kick that can down the road.
Global tech outages linked to Microsoft and CrowdStrike causing widespread business disruptions.
Thousands of flights being delayed or canceled.
I mean, this is an industry that has had a lot of post-COVID issues and a lot of issues with investing into this exact type of infrastructure.
In 2024, airlines reported 437 tarmac delays of more than 3 hours on domestic flights, up from 289 in 2023. Of all flights last year, more than 5% were delayed because of national aviation system issues. Safety, of course, is the top priority in regulating flights. And sadly this year, airline safety has been in the news too often.
A passenger plane has collided with a military helicopter mid-air in Washington, D.C.
We know that 64 were on that American Airlines commercial flight and 3 were on that U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter.
But despite some recent incidents, flying within the United States is remarkably safe. Elaine Chao was the transportation secretary under President Trump during his first term.
I think it's important for people to know that we have literally the safest system in the world, and that the United States is still considered basically the gold standard. But clearly, technology changes and maintenance and repairs need to keep up.
Edward Bolin agrees that the system is safe, but that we need to make some investments. He's the head of the association representing the private business side of the aviation industry.
We know definitively that it is the safest, the most efficient, the largest, and the most diverse air transportation system in the world, by a lot. But we need to be investing in the people, the facilities, and the equipment to make sure that we are able to continue to respond in a dynamic way.
Federal air traffic control in the U.S. began in 1941, and computer technology was added to radars in the 1960s thanks to IBM. In February 1982, the FAA released its first comprehensive plan for improving ATC services. This system has been in place for some time now. Was it built for this much load, and how much more load is there going to be in the future?
Well, I think the load is going to continue because air travel has become democratized ever since 1978 with the deregulatory aspects of air traffic, passenger traffic. And so it's almost as easy to go on an airplane as it would be to, let's say, a bus. And so more and more people are going. And now we have over 1 billion passengers, and they're accessing the system that clearly was not prepared for even a fraction of the current volume.
According to the FAA's preliminary data, there were 16.8 million flights in the nation's airspace in 2024, an increase of about 500,000 from 2023.
It's making air travel much more difficult for the consumer. How many of us can say within a month that we have never been caught in a delay or some kind of cancellation? And this is despite the best efforts of air traffic controllers and of airlines who want to fly frequently so that they can provide a steady service to their passengers.
It's more than just the inconvenience of all those delays. The government has taken a hard look at the existing air traffic control system and found it to be unsustainable.
FAA did this risk assessment to understand of the existing systems, which ones are unsustainable, which ones might be potentially unsustainable, and need investments to modernize them. Many of these systems are aging and face long-standing challenges.
Heather Krause is the managing director of physical infrastructure at the GAO, which produced a report on the overall state of the air traffic control system in the United States. In March, she testified before Congress about its findings.
So around 17 we found to be somewhat concerning in terms of the timelines that they have, as well as 4 of those systems not having baselines, so not knowing when those systems will be delivered. So important that FAA focuses on, what are the most critical systems, how are they going to mitigate risks in the meantime as they are working through the modernization efforts, and then delivering on those modernization plans.
Washington has been talking about updating the system for at least 40 years. It's commonly referred to as NextGen, short for Next Generation.
So in terms of NextGen, it's already being deployed in the National Airspace System. And so the ways that it's improving operations is through various phases of flight and really through kind of some key areas. So improvements in communications. So for example, communications between pilots and controllers and digitizing some of those communications. Navigation improvements to create more efficient routes for airplanes to travel from their arrival to destination, which leads to efficiency benefits as well as fuel savings. There's things also automation, so there's new automation tools being added to the system to support the air traffic controllers' management, again, of the efficient and safe operation of the national airspace system, as well as surveillance, so having better situational awareness and ability to more accurately track where aircrafts are at. All of those efforts kind of come together, and the real goal of NextGen is to kind of get to what's called trajectory-based operations. What that is really additional data and tools for the controllers to better manage and sequence flights from arrival to departure. So again, controllers, they're managing flights with altitude, longitude, and latitude, and these tools offer the additional kind of considering time as another element of managing the flight. So controllers would have an ability to know where and at what time aircraft are at key points in a route, taking into consideration conditions and other things even before an aircraft takes off.
The long runway for modernizing our air traffic control system is a real problem as technology continues to evolve.
By the time that the air traffic controllers can get a new piece of equipment, it's about 7 or 8 years old. It's not as modern as it should be. It took forever for the air traffic control system to have a GPS system.
If everyone agrees that the air traffic control system needs to move to the next generation, why has it taken 4 decades to get to where we need to be? First of all, it is complex and requires great care to make sure we get it right.
The systems themselves have to be certified, and that means they have to have a degree of redundancy and resilience that is different than what you would see in a lot of off-the-shelf technologies. It's got to be integrated, it's got to be certified. So that's part of it.
That's part of it, but far from the only part. What about the controllers who run the system? There's general consensus about their being outstanding professionals.
It's a tribute to the men and women of the air traffic control that they can keep the system kind of safe and maintained, with their expertise.
Our air traffic controllers are outstanding. They go through a very rigorous training process, and it takes years.
But as good as the controllers are, we need more of them. There were fewer air traffic controllers in the United States in 2024 than in 2011.
We need to make sure that we are getting enough that are being put into place. Currently, we're not where we need to be. We're anywhere from 20 to 25% behind where we would like to be.
Some people are saying we should increase the age of air traffic controllers. Right now, they're maxed out at 56 years old. At 56 these days, we're in much better health than what we used to be a generation ago. And so, for those that want to work beyond 56, we should be able to allow them to have that option, and currently they don't.
Even more than the need for more air traffic controllers is the need to expedite the procurement process for getting them the equipment that they need and get it to them faster.
The procurement is challenging. We get money that needs to be spent on an annual basis. We'd like to see that be more multi-year so that we can have more money up front and be able to carry that through in a multi-year process.
Secretary Chow agrees that it takes far too long to get the latest equipment purchased and deployed, but that it's more than just streamlining things. The problem may be in the very structure of the system.
In 2017, there was an effort under the first Trump administration to reorganize the structure of the air traffic control. And basically, it would take the air traffic control. It's not privatizing it because it's being put into a nonprofit organization, but rather I call it liberating the FAA and the air traffic control, basically liberating the air traffic control from FAA and even more succinctly, the federal government. So that air traffic control, like many others structured like this around the world, would be their own entity. They would have their own nonprofit status. They would have their own board of directors. But more importantly, they would use their own funding of resources and be able to use it for long-term planning.
As you look around the world, has anyone done this? Can we go to school on any other country in the way they've handled this?
Well, Canada is a primary example, Great Britain, Australia. There are many other countries who have taken air traffic control out of the government process and put it separately in its own nonprofit organization. And by doing that, it allows this nonprofit air traffic control system to plan ahead, have control over 100% of its budget, and be able to purchase equipment at a very timely rate and very efficiently as well.
Not everyone agrees with Secretary Chow about splitting the safety responsibilities from the day-to-day operations and taking the latter out of the government altogether.
What we want to do is make sure the United States stays the world leader. We can do that by looking at what they're doing in other countries and what has candidly not worked well. So when we look at countries around the world like Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, that have privatized their air traffic control system, we see a number of challenges in terms of their air traffic controllers, their technology, their delays, and most importantly, safety issues.
Whatever the changes, no one seems to doubt that they need to come, and need to come sooner rather than later, for the sake of the airline business, the convenience of all of us flying, and ultimately to make sure the U.S. maintains its safety record.
It is key that all of the different parts of the aviation system have really come together in sending a message to Capitol Hill about what we can do to advance our air transportation system. It's not enough to be the safest and the most efficient, the largest and the most diverse in the world.
It is still safe to fly. That said, continued reliance on aging systems does diminish the margin of safety and adds additional stress to the national airspace system, which is really why it's important that FAA improve the management and oversight of its modernization efforts.